What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jerome, and I'm coming to you today with a review for How to Get Away with Murder. This is season 5. I think this is episode 5, and this episode is titled, "It Was the Worst Day of My Life." So, without further ado, we are going to start the video. Okay, so this episode again started out differently than what the last few episodes have started out with. It didn't start with a flashback. Well, it did start with a flashback, but this flashback I think might be a week. So, what it is Annalise is in her class. And, she actually walks into the class and they're all very, very quiet. And so what it is that today is they're going to go over the case of little Nate. And, she wants to know where she went wrong in the case. So then Connor gets up out of his seat and tells her that she went wrong with her first decision. And then Elise is like, you know what? I did make a mistake by making New West my second chair. And he says, actually, it was before that. So then we do flashback a week before everything happened. And, this is when she's starting to go over the case with the kids. And she's just trying to get everything together so that, she knows what she's going to do when she gets to court and how she's going to present everything to the court and to the jury. So we also see her and she's with little Nate and big Nate. And she's talking, like I said, she's talking to both of them. And, once she finishes talking to little Nate, then big Nate wants to ask Annalise a question of how is Bonnie? And, Annalise is like, how do you expect her to be? We just completely fucked her world up by telling her that the son that she thought was dead all those years ago is now alive. And then, Annalise goes home. Well, she goes to, I guess, the house actually she goes to Bonnie's house. And Frank is there and she's like, I gave you one job to do and you didn't even do that because Bonnie has slipped away. So then we see Bonnie. She is with Big Nate and she's basically questioning Big Nate about why did you do what you did? Like, I had suppressed those memories. When they told me my baby was dead, I had let that go and I didn't think anything else of it. And now here you are bringing me this shit. And why did you do it? And, she's telling him how she just has to deal with it. And I actually really did feel bad for Bonnie because I'm like, damn, like for somebody who thought that their kid was dead and they've gone 20 something years thinking that their kid was dead. And now to find out that the kid might actually be alive, like that has got to be devastating to hear. So then we go back to Annalise. She and Frank are discussing Bonnie, where Bonnie might be. They're thinking the worst of what could be going on with Bonnie. But then Bonnie does walk into the house and, she's saying she was at Nate's. And then New West calls Annalise saying that they have a new witness. And then, we got Connor. He is ripping into both Annalise and to New West. But the reason why Connor is ripping into both of them is because Connor is still in his feelings because Annalise chose New West to be her second chair instead of him. So that's why Connor's trying to rip into Annalise. Okay, so now we are in court and it's the day of little Nate's trial. So then we have Big Nate. He's on the stand. He's been questioned by the prosecution. So the prosecution has this letter that Big Nate wrote when he was 14 years old when little Nate was going up for parole. And basically what happened with this letter was because the prosecution had Big Nate read that letter on the stand. And, Annalise was really trying to get that thrown out, but the judge, he allowed it. So like I said, Nate read it on the stand. And in a nutshell, what the letter was saying was, Big Nate at the time when he was 14 years old, he was happy with the life that he and his mom had. He felt like his dad should stay behind bars because no good can come from his dad being out in the world. So he wrote that letter to the parole board so that they would not release his dad, but instead keep his dad. And, little Nate says after that letter, he was expecting to get out of jail. But after that letter, that's when his life was turned upside down. That's when they threw him in the shoe and he lost he just lost his mind. And then, Lil Nate is also saying how he doesn't want to see Big Nate. And then Annalise is like, you need, despite what you think right now, you need him in that courtroom. You need somebody in that courtroom so that the jury can see that there is someone out there that loves you. So then back in the classroom, we're still talking about the case and what Annalise did wrong in the case. So then someone says, I think it was that girl that, it was going back and forth with Michaela a few episodes ago. She said that what Annalise did not do was discredit Nate as the witness. And how close she is to Big Nate. So then we have to go outside of the courtroom And we got Gabriel, aka New West, arguing with Connor, and they all are just arguing about this case. And I'm like, this bickering that you guys are doing is not helping the case out in any way, shape, or form. Like, you guys are sitting here arguing. You guys need to be figuring out a way to help Annalise. So then Michaela, there's Asher's there, and Michaela goes outside with Asher. And what it is Michaela and Asher are still having sex with each other, but they're not in a relationship with one another. So then Asher asks, Michaela about Bonnie, because Bonnie hasn't been in work. And she's like, do you still have feelings for Bon Bon? And he's like, no, I'm capable of being friends with a woman. You might be capable of being friends with a woman, but you're not capable of being friends with Bonnie. Because hell, look at Michaela. You are banging Michaela, your ex-girlfriend, and Bonnie is also your ex. So I don't know about your judgment now, there's nothing wrong with you being friends with women, because you are friends with Laurel's depressing ass, but you're not having sex with Laurel, but you have had sex with, like I said, Michaela and Bonnie. So I don't think that could work. So then we have Miller. He goes over to check on Bonnie, and then Frank opens the door. And when Frank opens the door, Miller wants to know what's going on with Bonnie. Frank tells Miller that Bonnie is sick. And he says, is she sick, or, what kind of sick is it that she is? And then Miller's like, if Bonnie was freaked out by that whole HR thing that I gave her, tell her not to worry about it. And Frank was like, I'll tell her. And Miller's like, no, let me go tell her. And Frank was like, you're good, bro. You're good. So then Frank goes up to the room where Bonnie is, and Bonnie is still curled up in the fetal position. And Frank actually was supportive of Bonnie. He was telling her, Bonnie, he was trying to cheer Bonnie up, and he told Bonnie whatever Bonnie wants to do, he is 100% supportive of. I'm like, this is a different side of Frank. That I kind of like this side of Frank just a little bit, but you still got the creepy side of Frank. All right, so then we got Big Nate and Annalise there together, and he's saying how, they had, Annalise basically thinks with the psych expert that they have everything in the bag. And Nate says, he does remember writing that letter. And he was thinking how when his dad was in prison, that his dad was the bad guy and the cops were the good guys. So that's why he went and joined the police force, because he felt like the police force was good and his dad was bad. And him joining the police force was, like I said, once again, is good. And it didn't have him turning into who his dad was. So then Annalise, Annalise just basically tells Nate, what, we got this. We're going to win this case. Don't worry about anything. All right, so then back in the classroom, they are still going over Little Nate's case, what Annalise did wrong and what she didn't do right. And in a surprising turn of events, Michaela stands up, and Michaela is praising Annalise. And I'm like, oh my God, it must be a cold ass day in hell that Michaela is giving up and telling Annalise that she did good. And what Michaela said was that Annalise discredited the psych doctor that the prosecution had. And we flash back to what happened. So Michaela, like I said earlier, Michaela is still sleeping with Asher. So Michaela goes over to Asher's, and she tried to get information for Annalise on the doctor. His name is Dr. Charmaine. I believe that's what his name is. And Asher at first was like, you know what? I'm not going to help you or AK. And, she was like, well, it's not really for me and Annalise. Who did she say it was for? Oh, well, she played a guilt trip on him. What it was when he said he's not going to do it for her or Annalise, she said, well, how would you do this? It's not for me and Annalise, it's for Nate. You would do that for Nate, wouldn't you? So we flash back. We see Asher. He goes over to Annalise's apartment, and Annalise is like, how the hell do you know where I stay? And none of you guys are supposed to know where I stay. He's like, well, I know where you stay, and I'm bringing you this information that you want. So he gives Annalise the information, but before he gives Annalise the information, he wants to know what is going on with Bonnie. So if we go back, Annalise, remember a few seasons ago when Annalise told Asher that Bonnie's dad molested her, she told him to guess, and then he thinks about that, and she's like, you know what? Keep that to yourself. Do not tell anybody else don't tell anybody. Just make sure that this stays between you and I. So then we move over to the courtroom. So on the stand, the prosecution is questioning Dr. Charmaine. And, basically Dr. Charmaine is saying that what it is with Lil Nate with his this um, plea that he's using it. He is basically him just using that to get himself out of jail. So then, the prosecution rests what he's gonna say. So then Annalise gets up and she was like, well, isn't your boss basically paying you to say this? And when she said that, the judge wanted to, go further. So when the judge went further, he was like, you know what? We're going to strike that from the record. So that basically entailed discredited Dr. Charmaine's whole testimony. So the prosecution loses the psych doctor that they had. All right, so then we got Laurel. So she's outside, and New West was on the phone with somebody. So he hung up that phone, and then Laurel goes up to New West, and she's basically offering to help New West. Once she goes pick up baby Christopher, and if she can bring him over to his place, she will help him. He was like, "Well, why are you trying to help me?" And she was like, "Well, pretty soon I'll be second chair, and I'll need all the help that I can get from you. So I guess it's a win-win, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, something like that." So then we go back to Big Nate. He's talking with Little Nate, and he's telling him, Annalise will be there, and basically, Little Nate is just sick of Annalise and Big Nate telling him what to do because he can see that they're losing the case. And Big Nate is like, no, we're not losing the case. Trust Annalise. She got this. She knows what she's doing. So then Big Nate tells, not Big Nate, but Little Nate tells Big Nate that he wants to get on the stand. He wants to tell the jury his story in his own words. And, Big Nate is not quite sure if he should do that. But then Little Nate plays, he tells him, Annalise won't listen to me, but she will, however, listen to you. So then we see Annalise. She is calling New West. And what she wants New West to do is she wants him to look up cases where basically the client on the defense side got up on the prosecution stand and just, gave his case. So, and then, yeah, that's basically what it is. She just wanted him to look up any past cases where this has been done. All right, so then we have Connor and Oliver. They are in bed and they just finished having sex with each other. And Oliver feels like Connor is just, taking all his frustrations out with him not being second chair and all the things with Annalise. He's taking it out on him and he's putting it in the bedroom, which I'm like, okay, I don't want to think about Connor and Oliver having sex. It doesn't repulse me. It's just like, God, I get tired. Is that all y'all know to do is have sex? So then we have Laurel. She is helping New West like she said she would. And she's helping him with the stuff that Annalise wanted him to do for this case. So they're looking through old cases and they're just coming up with stuff. So then we do see Frank, who is watching Laurel with New West. And I'm like, God, Frank, how creepy can you fucking be? And then again, Bonnie is still in that room. But this time, Bonnie gets up and she goes and she opens up the file that Denver and both Big Nate had on her. And she's looking at the photo of her sister. So we go back to the courtroom. And Annalise is questioning Little Nate on the stand. And she's asking him about the shoe. And how it made him feel, how he made it through it. And he says that he made it through it because he had a photo of him and Big Nate when he was a little kid. But he says once the guards came in and took that photo away from him, that's when he had his mental break. He lost his mind. And, that was just the breaking point. And he said that, with the man that he killed in prison, that it would have happened to anyone. But at that point, it was just, he just came out the shoe. And, like I said, it could have happened to anybody, but it just so happened that that man was there at that particular time antagonizing him. And it just so happened that that was the first person he saw and he fought him and he killed him. So then we have this scene where Bonnie, she's meeting with Miller. And, she's telling Miller that she wants to talk to him. And then she proceeds to tell him about her family, how, her dad molested her and her sister when she was 5 and her sister was 6 years old. And her mother knew, and that her and her sister was a way for them to make money. I'm like, oh God, that is so fucking nasty. And she tells Miller that her dad and her mom sold them to men to have sex. And then she got pregnant at 15. And when she had her baby, her parents told her that her baby was dead. And now she is just finding out that her baby may actually still be alive. And she's just not sure at this point if this is the right time for her to be in a relationship with Miller. But Miller does tell Bonnie that he does love her. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. Like, I want Bon Bon to be happy. Like, come on, Miss Cold Booty. Be happy. Okay, so back in the courtroom, Little Nate is being questioned by the prosecution this time. And, they're basically twisting what he's saying and flipping it. And Annalise is catching that. And she's like, Your Honor, he's provoking the witness. He's testifying for the witness is what she said. He's testifying a witness because Little Nate said that, he said he was about, okay, so what it was the prosecution was saying, he was, because he said he was provoked. But then he says that he was he said he was provoked and hallucinating. And like I said, Annalise said that the prosecution was testifying for, the witness. And the judge struck that from the testimony. And then Annalise gets up and she asked, did they back in the classroom. I'm reading my notes all backwards. So back in the classroom, she's asking, did they con the psych evaluation for their side or for the prosecution side? So Connor gets up and he says that they conned it for the prosecution. So Annalise is like, okay, so we got 3 hours before we give the closing statements. And, she's trying to get from the class, what should the closing argument be? So basically, New West gets up and says that it should be a mistrial. And she was like, so you want me to throw in the towel now that I've gotten this far? And New West is like, well, Little Nate's case is your face case. And if you lose this case, that's going to be detrimental to the other cases that you have, the other cases in the class action suit that you have. So, back in the courtroom, Annalise is giving her closing both Annalise and the prosecution are giving their closing arguments. So Annalise knocks on the desk at New West. So then we see Annalise gets up, and then we see New West. He's on the floor, and he's putting tape down on the floor. And I'm like, what is going on with this one? So, once New West put the tape down, what it was the tape of a square. And Annalise was talking about that Little West was in the shoe for a year, and she called out how, the minutes that he was in there. So what it is she wants the jury to put themselves in Little Nate's shoes. So what Annalise does was she steps inside of that square, and she just gets quiet. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, this is like awkward as hell. Like, I don't know if I can sit in the courtroom or anywhere in just pure silence. So that was her thing, just to get the court to see that by sitting in pure silence, that caused him to go crazy and lose his mind. All right, so outside of the court, Annalise goes up to Connor. She's talking to Connor, and she's saying, just because I didn't do the mistrial, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a good idea. And Connor's like, well, should you be telling that to New West? And she was like, come on, Connor. You are the only person that's that close to this case, and you knew everything about it. So I know that it was you. And then we see a scene where Connor gives New West the information and tells him to tell her it's a mistrial. So, he tells Annalise that her closing was great. And then she says, you know what, I should have taken you off the case. I should have, basically this is my way of apologizing to you. And then, New West comes out and tells them that the jury has, reached a verdict. So then they go inside to find out that the verdict is not guilty, and they are so happy. Even I was happy sitting here watching. I'm like, yes, not guilty. So, outside, Annalise has been questioned by the press, and she's telling the press. I didn't really take down what Annalise was saying to the press, but we have Little Nate. He's in the courtroom, and he's telling Big Nate that he actually does forgive him. So then we go back outside of the courtroom where Annalise is still talking to the press, and then Laurel walks up to New West and she tells him, shouldn't you be behind Annalise? And he was like, nah, I'm good. So then Laurel sees Frank, and she goes up to Frank to talk to him, and she's telling him that, when she went over to New West's apartment, surprise, surprise, he lives in Old West's apartment building, and surprise, surprise, come to find out that, an older guy that he hoops with suggested that to him. And she's like, Frank, who is he? And Frank doesn't say anything. So then we go to the governor's office. She is watching Annalise, and Annalise is so happy, talking about how, you know, she's gone up against the governor and she's kicked her ass. And the governor's like, you know what, invite her here and let's see if she can say that same stuff to my face. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Annalise will say the same thing to your face. But, you know, if you don't believe she will, go ahead and just go for it. So then we have Asher, Michaela, Connor, and Oliver. They're celebrating the win of this case. And Oliver's like, are you two still boning? And they're like, no, we're not boning. We're planning your joint bachelor party. And they were like, we don't want that. So, you know, they're joint bachelor parties. And then Oliver tells Connor that his mom is coming. He was like, but I thought we said our moms weren't coming. And then he says, well, your mom is coming as well. So then we see Annalise. She calls Bonnie to check on Bonnie. And Bonnie tells her that she's outside of Julie's house. And Annalise says, you know what, Bonnie, I'm on my way. So that's when Bonnie says, you know what, you don't have to worry about coming because Miller is with me. And, you know, Annalise is like, well, we don't know how he can, you know, we don't know what he's going to do and how he's going to react. So then Bonnie goes up to Julie's door. She knocks on the door and here comes Julie. And then we flash backwards to the rating reception of Connor and Oliver. So we have Bonnie standing outside in the cold with the blood on her feet. And we have Connor. He's walking around trying to find Oliver. So when he's walking, he goes by a car and he sees his mom. And he says, Mom. And we see Asher come up from between her legs. And I'm like, oh, shit. Asher was just chewing on your mama's carpet. But that was so fucking. I'm like, God damn. How you going to chew on your homeboy's mama's cat? Wow. So that was the episode, and they did say at the end of this episode that 2 more episodes. Excuse me. It's 2 more episodes before we find out who died at the wedding, and that is the hashtag who died at the wedding. So I'm like, damn, we are coming up on the winter finale that soon. But that was How to Get Away with Murder. Like the video, leave your comments, and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys later.